Welcome, everyone, to our second panel in the Lift Every Voice Black Alumni Across the Industry panel series, featuring our alumni in the communication, marketing, and media industries. My name is Letitia Taylor, and I am the Director of Alumni Career and Personal Development with VCU Office of Alumni Relations. Before I turn it over to our wonderful moderator for today's conversation, I would like to go over just a few housekeeping points. So we will be recording this afternoon's event. So don't worry if you blinked a little too hard and missed a few seconds of the discussion, a recording will be available. There is also live closed captioning available. So this is new for us today. We are accessing this today. So to access this, if you are interested, you can locate the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen. Once clicked, select show subtitles from the menu. If you are having issues accessing this feature, message our VCU alumni chat bot for assistance. I would also like to thank those that were able to submit questions for our panelists while registering. We will try to get to as many questions submitted as possible, but feel free to submit questions via the Q&A pane of the control panel that you should see at the bottom of your screen. As we get through today's conversation, we will continue with questions that have been submitted during the event if time allows. Lastly, with respect for our time during this 1 hour long event, we have placed or will be placing a link in the chat for you to conveniently learn more about our moderator and panelists. So without further ado, I would now like to turn it over to our moderator, 2014 Robertson School of Media and Culture alumna, Bria White, who is a journalist and multimedia brand and marketing strategist who currently serves as the communications manager for the U.S. Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C. Bria, take it away.
Hello, I was about to say good morning, but it's officially afternoon. So hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be joining all of you today. And as you just mentioned, you can find our panelists' full list of bios using the link that was placed in the chat just now. So how's this going to work? Well, I'm going to be providing you with a very brief intro for our panelists to welcome them to the conversation. Today, we'll be hearing from Bruce Bo Fields. He is the project lead at Wieden & Kennedy in New York City, a 2010 School of Business graduate. We have Marcus Moman. He is a diversity marketing coordinator with the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta, Georgia, and a 2017 School of Business alum. We have Melvin Rohn, a managing partner for the Rohn Consulting Group in Miramar, Florida, and a 2011 Humanities and Sciences alumnus. And lastly, Melissa Stamp. Melissa Stamp is an assistant account executive in Edelman here in Washington, D.C., where I am. And she's also a 2018 Robertson School of Media and Culture and Da Vinci Center alumna. So thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to be here and answer some questions from everyone on the line right now. So firstly, let's kick this off. So let's take a look and take a step back at what were some of the determining factors that you used to figure out when you wanted to get your degree. So I know for many people, careers and interests and jobs sometimes kind of fall in your lap and you end up doing what you're doing based on one reason or another. So can you just let us know what was some of the determining factors for the degree that you would ultimately get? And did you know before obtaining your respective degrees what you would want to pursue?
I can start. I think I knew from high school that I wanted to do something in communications. I started out actually as a journalism major, but I quickly realized that I wanted something more creative. So through my on-campus leadership roles, I discovered marketing, but marketing was too businessy. So then I fell into advertising and PR. And that is how I learned what I wanted to do, truly through like my on-campus experience. And I figured that out maybe my sophomore year, and that's basically what I'm doing now.
Well, actually, I'm a little older than most of my distinguished panelists, but 1981, when I first arrived at VCU, my first broadcasting class at that particular time, cable had not exploded to what we know it as to be today, a space of more than 800 plus channels. At that particular time, ESPN was just beginning. And so as I walked into the first communications class, I realized a lot of people in here, and it's going to be extremely competitive. And therefore, advertising became what I eventually evolved into. And now I own a firm that specializes in corporate sponsorship and brand management, which is social media has totally taken that to a whole nother level.
And
Bruce?
I can step in. I'm a piggyback off of Melissa. Like I started in middle school, getting involved in like marketing programs, DECA. I'm not sure how many people were involved in that, but getting to VCU, knowing I wanted to focus on marketing, and then meeting my mentor my freshman year, and him introducing me to advertising and just the route that's taken me. So yeah, it was one of those things that I was exposed to kind of early in high school. And when I got to VCU, we just kind of having that foundation opened up a lot of different doors and different directions to lead where I ended up now.
Marcus, how about you?
Yeah, for myself, I went to school to be in business management, knowing that I wanted to do a little bit of something completely different, which was sport management, which VCU didn't have for my degree. But I was intentional about the opportunities I looked for in school. So that's kind of how I navigated my major into what I wanted to do now, which is working for people and helping people and creating safe environments and equitable environments for people. So.
Okay. I think everyone definitely had different experiences depending on your background and the different experiences that you had going into VCU. It sounds like, and I'm glad that Bruce brought up mentors. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Once you figured out your interest, tell us a little bit about how the roles of your mentors really impacted your career path. Anyone want to start that off?
I can lead this one. So actually my freshman year at VCU, I met my mentor who was a second year student in the VCU Brand Center. And I had no clue what the Brand Center was. I only knew of traditional marketing. And we just randomly met. He was my RA for my freshman dorm. And that relationship kind of, talking to him, helping him, like the help that he provided as far as guidance and roles and steps that I can kind of take post graduation while I'm in school, and even just aligning the projection of what his career wanted to look like and how that was very similar to mine. Along the way, he just served as that person of just, in the background of like, hey, that's take a look at that role. When I graduated and was considering graduate school, he was like, maybe get some real life experience and then try and come back for graduate school. So, along the way, he's kind of played a role of, just a guiding voice of like, things to consider, things to watch out for. And, considering he's experienced a lot of the things I would then experience later on or down my road, he gave me some pros and cons, some do's and don'ts. So the role of a mentor has kind of been like a big benefit in my career path.
Anyone else have any mentor good experiences?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here for the mentor side. I had multiple mentors throughout all of my time at VCU and even into my professional role now. For VCU, I had a mentor at the School of Business my freshman year. I also was a part of the VCU African American Alumni Council mentorship program. So my mentor, Glenn, who's actually on, I believe, next week's panel, helped me navigate going through school and going through VCU my entire time there. And his role helped me in becoming, intentional in where I wanted to go in my goals at school, but also knowing, how to navigate higher education as a Black student and a Black student at VCU. And I think that was very important. And I think it's important for a lot of people to have mentors throughout the way, because it's like Bruce said, it's someone who's walking with you down the line every step of the way, and someone that can be there and talk to you.
What would you guys say, just as a quick aside to anyone who might be on this call who says, yeah, that sounds great. Mentors sound amazing, but I'm not the outgoing person. They may be able to know where to find these people or these opportunities.
I think, when I look, because in particular for myself, I have an opportunity to work with a number of individuals, students that are in college that work for me on a number of programs. I think mentorship isn't just in the educational environment. I think you need to really be, as Marcus mentioned, very strategic and very intentional about what you're trying to do. What is your ultimate goal? And find mentors along those career paths that you're seeking that can really help you truly understand the path you're going. I think Melissa mentioned it earlier, when she first got to school, like most students, you think you are going to choose one academic path, and more times than often, students tend to change their majors. They tend to find out what they're truly interested in, what excites them, what engages them. And I'm sure we've all enrolled in a class, and after we got in the class, we've discovered this really isn't what I want to do. So I suggest you not just seek mentors within the academic environment, but in the professional environment as well.
I can add to this too, because I am that introverted type of person. I think my number one advice would be definitely what Melvin just said: be intentional. Seek somebody who is what you want to be in 5 to 10 years, or who is walking in the path that you want to walk in. My other advice would be, don't limit yourself to somebody who's in this career path. There are lots of valuable mentors who are in other career paths too, but who will listen to you and who maybe have a wide network that can share people that they know who are doing something similar, or can just talk to you about general, like how to, thrive in a workplace. Those are transferable skills that any mentor can share with you. So don't feel pressure either if you're not finding anybody in this industry. If you find somebody else, just make it work for you.
Don't count us out yet. My kids love sledding in the backyard, even if it's 2 inches or less.
Okay. Well, those are very insightful. I'm glad that you all chimed in, because I definitely noticed that when I talk to people, finding a mentor sounds easier than actually doing it, I think sometimes. So besides a mentor, what are some of the resources that they can utilize at VCU that, as alumna, that you would recommend that they could seek out? And what are some books or articles that they could be recommended to take a look at?
I would say the alumni, just looking up the alumni networks. I remember early on when I left after I graduated from VCU and I moved to Atlanta, I knew a few people in the city, and then there was a couple people that I went to college with, went to VCU with, that I met, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to these VCU alumni events, like trying to go." I was like, "Okay," signed up, and I think it was maybe like a Super Bowl party or something, but it was, it was a way to meet, VCU alumni from all different generations and years, and that helped me kind of stay just in the know of certain things that were happening. And even when I'm relocated to New York, just because of that, I was able to know and be able to find a lot of VCU alumni that were either in my industry or not, but just having that kind of that support in how to navigate the city, how to navigate the industry, and just having someone who had that common denominator. It's just like, we're here together, we're both alum, like let's figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with Bruce on that one. I remember what it was like to graduate from school, for any alums that are recent grads or kind of navigating being in a new area. That's the most important part, is networking and relationship building and reaching out to fellow alums in your area. When I moved to Florida, it was like that before I was here in Atlanta. I didn't know anyone. I had moved to an area where I knew absolutely no one, and VCU, like the alumni platform, provides you that opportunity to meet people who are doing the same thing or have already been in this area, know what's going on, making you feel comfortable. There is something to be said about being comfortable in uncomfortable areas. There's another thing to be said about finding people who look like you or can help you become comfortable in a new area that you want to be successful in. So use the resources, they're there for a reason, but also know that you can make some great friends and relationships out of that that'll last you a long time. I mean, even being on this panel right now, I already know I'm going to reach out to Bruce because his business right now and what I do on a day-to-day basis, we need to do some talking. So
it's interesting
Great.
that Marcus mentions that as you speak about the alumni and the mentoring network. Several of my classmates are people when I first became a student at Virginia Commonwealth University: Larry Powell, Gail Johnson, Jeff Roberts, Keith Parker, who's on the board of trustees now. We were students at VCU together. So I think not just from a mentoring ship though, but as we've progressed in our professional careers, we've continued to support one another. Gail, during her time as vice president at AT&T, has been one of my clients and supporters as well. So I would encourage my younger alumni to continue those relationships, even if it's outside of one of the alumni chapters. You just never know when someone, as Melissa touched on, is able to open a door for you that could truly be impactful to your career.
Yeah, I'll say one of the biggest tools for me in general is just social media. I say this all the time, but you can really use social media just like you use Google to find people to connect with. So for example, just following VCU alumni on Instagram, on LinkedIn is an easy way to know what's going on and to see who else is commenting, who else is participating, and finding people to connect with there. Like 80% of the time, people will not find it weird if you send them a message saying, hey, I'm also a VCU alumni, saw that you're going to this event or saw that you commented, would love to connect with you. That's a super easy way. And to answer the second part of your question, some other like resources in terms of books or people that I follow along with, two people on social media that I'll say, one of them is Bazoma St. John. She is a crazy marketing executive, a Black, she's from Ghana originally. I follow along her journey. Myleik Teal as well is an incredible businesswoman. And those are people that I've just followed. I spend a lot of time on social media already, so it's super easy to just get their content, see what they're sharing in a sort of like a mentoring format.
Those are fantastic points. And I actually didn't even consider social media, which I should have. I was thinking more in the traditional lines of networking and going out, but especially in our post-COVID world, that's definitely very important. So I'm glad you added that. So around this whole conversation, we are all people of color. And so in that mindset, what would you say, or would you say that you identify, or maybe I'll say, as people of color, would you say that your identity has shaped how you've navigated your career post VCU in your day-to-day ways that you show up for work? And what is something that you found the most helpful in navigating that?
So I'll take it as a business owner. As a business owner, I think once you get past the initial stages of being outside of school and so forth, we've always, people of color, have always heard that we have to perform at a level that's over and above our contemporaries. And believe it or not, it's true, you know, but you can do that by holding yourself to a certain standard of excellence. And I think that's what I impress upon my employees, my clients, my contemporaries, as well as young people that I mentor to, is that you need to evaluate yourself and say, am I doing the best that I can, you know, and not use color as an excuse for not being able to accomplish those goals. Yes, you're going to run into some barriers. I think the past year of the COVID, George Floyd, the things that we've seen in America have shown us that there can be different standards, but there also can be different standards of excellence. One of my clients is the city of Miami Gardens, which is the largest predominantly Black city in the state of Florida. And it is one of the most progressive and aggressive cities in the state, hosting Jazz in the Gardens Music Festival. But inside of that, at one point, 5 women of color were in leadership positions: the city attorney, the assistant city manager, director of media, and so forth. So challenge yourself to be the very best that you can be. And I think you can overcome those barriers.
Yeah,
Are you saying something?
Yeah, I would say additionally, for myself, how I show up to work has been a benefactor for me in the role that I play, because I do work in the diversity and equity space. And for me, I get an opportunity to build out a lot of our engagements for fans, for people who look like me as well, for things that I care about. I do also think that that provides a little bit of privilege for myself too, that other Black colleagues aren't accustomed to. I can show up as the quote unquote diversity person in rock backgrounds of Black History Month, or, you know, show up and do other things that, you know, is for all the people. And I recognize that and kind of understand that we're creating a space that's equitable and equal for everybody. But at the same time, I can show up differently too. I get the opportunity to show up as my full self because my role allows me to do that. And I've had the benefit of doing that on a day-to-day basis. Where it has come with that, how do I navigate my career with that, is I am also constantly trying to figure out how to make other people comfortable with that. Or working with colleagues who are also trying to figure out, like, is this okay for me to do? Can I say this? Like, how do I approach this to you? Because you are the quote unquote diversity person, or you are the person who's trying to progress a business or a company, and you are also Black. And right now, especially in these times, like Melvin was saying, off the murder of George Floyd, everybody is kind of feeling like they need to walk on eggshells or stand for something. And it does kind of change how you navigate things a little bit.
I think that's very valid. I think a lot of people go through, especially in professional settings, trying to express themselves and do all the things that people are telling you to be yourself and show that diversity that we hired you for. And yet you still end up at sometimes feeling like you have to make such and such comfortable. And how does someone go into a situation? What would you recommend for towing that line of feeling valid, feeling accepted, because you know you were qualified for this job and you deserve to take up this space? How can I go to work every day feeling that without feeling like I have to be stifled or not some sort of stereotype?
I mean, I think I also feel like a big part of that is finding a company that, you know, will allow you to even do that. Like, you know, I think sometimes we look at these company names and these brands and we want to work there, but essentially the company culture just really is toxic, or, you know, isn't really allowing their employees to be who they are. And that's honestly how I fell into advertising. Being able to wear a t-shirt and sneakers and client meetings and not look crazy was was definitely a draw for me. And even when I now, like, when it comes to working with, you know, the bigger brands, or, you know, speaking to high school and college students, like, I usually wear a t-shirt and sneakers because it's like, this is me, this is who I am when I come to work, when I leave work, and what I do in my job, and the quality of work that I provide has nothing to do with how I'm dressed, has nothing to do with how I talk. It's all about what I'm able, my abilities. And I want, young people who look like us to know that. Like, you don't have to fit this cookie cutter mold to fit into a company or be successful in your career. You just really have to find who you are and what you're comfortable with, and then also find a company that's going to allow you to express that.
I think that's a great point, and that's something that was super valuable for me when I was picking a company to work at. But more than that, I think set yourself up for the ability to do that. From the time that you start working someplace, set the expectation that this is who you are, that you're not going to limit yourself or stifle yourself, and also make it clear what you want to be doing and what you want to work on. I like to Marcus's point, for example, a lot of the other Black people that I work with are on the diversity team. I'm one of the only people that is not on that team. And so I can find it difficult sometimes to work on other work, and people are looking at me to weigh in on multicultural topics. And I'm like, yeah, I can give you my perspective as a Black person. I'm also Afro-Latina, so I can give you the perspective from the Latino community, but I'm not the subject matter expert here. I'm more of a subject matter expert on consumer and lifestyle. So making it clear, this is what I want to work on, this is my value. I have so much more value than the color of my skin and the background and the community that I represent.
And Melvin, as a Black person who owns his own business, how do you establish your own space in a professional world of communications?
That's a great question, Bree. I think one of the things Marcus, Bruce, and Melissa have all touched on it. I think we have to be comfortable in our own skin when we are in these meetings. Our organization has done projects with Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and I think you've got to get comfortable with not apologizing for being who you are. A lot of times we feel comfortable being the only African American, the only woman, the only person of color in a particular room, and sometimes we take it upon ourselves to shrink our abilities, but you can be confident and not be cocky in a business environment, and people will respect that of you. Marcus touched on it very eloquently earlier. He's the subject matter expert, but he's the subject matter expert based on training, but also his personal experiences. And that's a lot of times people want us to deny our own personal experiences of how we got to where we are. And I think one of the things that I encourage the younger students to do is to continue to be comfortable in the skin that you're in. Melissa had mentioned earlier, she's not an outgoing person. She's more introverted than anything, but that does not mean she does not bring a wealth of talent and knowledge to the table. Always project yourself and put yourself in a position to be strategically successful. Doesn't mean you won't be denied certain experiences, job promotions, and so forth. But if you go about it in the right way, you can find success.
Great, thank you. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from this famous attorney in Baltimore, Billy Murphy. He told me, never apologize for who you are and who you're being, and you are not there for their entertainment. And so that has really stuck with me for a lot of different situations, professionally and socially. I am not here for your entertainment, and I've literally said that out loud to someone before. So Melissa and Bruce, you guys come from a different world a little bit from where Melvin's perspective is. You both are at two different large agencies. Any quick suggestions that you could give for setting yourself apart from the pack?
I can start. I think the number one takeaway I have in a big agency is to be proactive. things move super quickly. And so the number one thing that you can do is say, as soon as an email from a client comes in or a new project starts, I can start XYZ task. I can start the schedule. I can start seeing people's availability. Anticipate what the needs are, especially if it's something that you've done before. You kind of know the cadence of how things are going to, go from start of a project to finish. So just jump in and say, hey, I can do this. I can edit this. That is the number one thing. The second thing is advocate for yourself. If you see that people are not highlighting your good work, send an email. I've done this before. Send an email to your manager. Look at the feedback I got on XYZ, so that they can see that you're doing great work. And then you have more, then they'll remember when a new project comes in, oh, Melissa did really good with that last time. We can add her to this team or this project. So advocate for yourself and be proactive.
Yeah, definitely. Those are are definitely the top 2 points. I would also say, even with being proactive, like I would early on in my career, like my first internship in advertising, I said no to nothing. Like I literally was willing to prove that I deserved to be there, and I was open to do anything. And that was me moving to Atlanta, living in a hotel for 3 months as an intern, making nothing but literally any task, whether it was working in production, account management, anything that threw my way. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna try. And and a part of that, kind of going to Melissa's second point, keep track of everything, right? Everything down, every project you work on, every win you have, when it comes time for those early reviews, or when you're fighting for that promotion or that pay bump, you have, like, there's no reason why you can't bring your paper to the to the meeting. Like, this is what I've done for this company. This is what I've done in this role, and this is why I deserve the things that I'm asking for, or even I deserve the consideration from you and from this company to be recognized and appreciated more. And like it's one of those things they can't deny. If you don't keep track of it, they may loosely remember certain things, but if you have it all written down, if you keep track of all these things, if you're really, that's a part of advocating for yourself. It's like, I know what I've done, and I need you to understand what I've done. Just it's us taking pride in the work that we do.
Absolutely. And then when you're advocating for yourself, have any of you ever felt like you had to hide or tone down your Blackness, your culture, however you present yourself, in order to break into the room, into your profession, into something that you deserved?
I want to say that I haven't felt it outright, but it is something that can be kind of in the back of your mind. And this is something that you kind of touched on earlier, is feeling like they hired you because they're trying to meet XYZ diversity goal, but you're still kind of like scared to show up as yourself. So there have been times when like I've said something and I'm like, oh my gosh, was that too Black? Like, oh no. Or, I've sent like a meme about like a show or something, and I'm like, they probably don't know what that's from. But you know what? I've just kept doing it because no one's going to say anything to you, really. Like, and if they're talking about you behind their back, that's their business. But like, as long as you don't have an issue where like there's a conflict, just continue to show up. Just continue to do what you do, to say what you say, to talk how you talk, and you're going to be all right.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. Like you also have to find out like who you're comfortable being, and finding a company that allows you to be that. So a lot of times I would say I wouldn't have to downplay my Blackness, because it's like from the moment that you interview me to the moment you give me an offer, that is the same person that you're going to get once I get in the door. And whether you follow me on social media or not, whether you see me out and about, like it's going to be the same person. So I want you, well, that's kind of how I operate, in the sense of like, I don't want you to ever feel like I'm putting on a mask or putting on a show to appease you or appease this company. It's like, no, I was hired for who I am and what I can do. And I'm going to be, appreciated for that. Like also to your point, like, I'm not here for your entertainment. So if you have a problem with how I acted, how Black I am, then it's like, maybe I'm not a good fit for you, or maybe you don't need to work here. Like, it's kind of one of those things that you just kind of position. So yeah.
So being in a white dominated world, what are some practical ways that people can deal with imposter syndrome?
Be yourself. And I know that sounds simplistic, but as life goes on, I've worked for major corporations as consultants for Southland Corporation, USA Today. I've been in Northern Virginia where you are, Bria. I think if you're not true to yourself, ultimately two things are going to happen. One, you're not going to be happy in your career. And thus, if you're not happy in your career, you're not going to perform at your very best. I think the other thing, as you become more seasoned, as I am in age and so forth, you are a combination or culmination of all of your experiences. And one of the things that I would encourage my fellow panelists is that as you go through these processes, always keep in the back of your mind, what could you do if you owned the company? Because ultimately you're going to be in leadership positions and you may own your own company as well. And so thus you will pretty much make a blueprint for creating success. You're all going to be leaders. You're not just going to be employees. You're going to own companies. You may be president of companies. You'll be presidents of coalitions and so forth, whether they involve predominantly brown or Black individuals in those organizations, or they're going to be a combination of what America looks like. You've always got to keep that in mind and never minimize who you are.
I can't even say anything additional to what Melvin said, because being yourself is the point and is straight to the point. I work in an industry that has been and continues to be white male dominated. And for some reason, sport and entertainment seems to think that we still can't find diverse candidates. So we're building pipelines and programs and all of these things. I focus on that a lot of the time, and it's great. I love it because it gives me a chance to give back the same way that I got into the industry. And it's very important to do so. And as Melvin was saying, as we think about being leaders, to my fellow panelists too, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And this is how somebody opened the door for us. This is how we're going to open the door for others. But at the same time, being yourself is the best way to get out of this imposter syndrome that you may deal with, and thinking that you don't belong. No, you're here for a reason. You got the job for a reason. You're the person that they go to for certain things for a reason, and not on the, educate me on why this is wrong as a white person or a different person of color because you're Black and you're going to tell me the ins and outs, right? No, that's not what that's about. Like, professionally, in the job that you do, you are there for a reason. And the job that you are doing, you are qualified for it. You are valued for it. You are seen, you are heard, you are welcome. Like, those are all of the most important things for you to understand. And that's what we have to go into our careers knowing and understanding and continuing to reiterate to ourselves, because you are there for a reason. And being yourself is the reason you are there. And being yourself is the reason why you will continue to move up in your industries and your lines of work.
Yeah, these are great answers. And I want to add something. Almost everyone on this call either is an alumni or is about to get their degree. So when you feel that imposter syndrome, you better look at that frame that you have on your wall. You got this degree. You took those classes. You belong here. You deserve to be in this job. And to Bruce's point earlier, keep track of what you have done. When you feel that emotion creeping up that I don't know how to do this, or I'm not smart enough to be doing this, I don't belong here, look back. You already have done the work. You already have laid the foundation. You can keep going. You can do XYZ projects. Don't let one mistake stop you from feeling like you belong on your team or, you're not an excellent person. You can, and you have the paper to prove it.
And I would add, like, even for myself, just as a Black man in advertising, I look at, the people who came before me, who even what they had to go to get for me to be in this position. Like, I think of Bill Sharp, and what he went through building the basic ag course and trying to get, Black and brown people into the advertising industry. I think of, I just think of like how hard it is for someone who looks like me to be in the space and in the position that I am a lot of times. And it isn't by choice, by chance that I'm here. Like I worked very hard to get to where I am. I have the resume. Like Melissa said, we have the degree hanging on the wall. Some of us have the student debt to prove it. And it's like, yeah, I worked really hard to get to where I am. And there's a reason why I'm in this room. There's a reason why, they're asking my opinion on these topics. There's a reason why I'm sitting here. So it's like in those moments, a lot of people went through a lot of things for me to have the opportunity to sit here. And at no point in time can I take that for granted. And I have to, do what I need to do to open the doors for the next person who looks like us to come through the doors and to be a little easier. And they shouldn't, they won't have to feel us, criticized for who they are, what they look like, what they dress like, just even in the span of the short time that I've been in my industry. I my first day of work, I wore full suit. The creative director walked by wearing t-shirt and shorts. To now me being that person walking by in a t-shirt and jeans, and the interns coming in, dressing the same and feeling comfortable doing that. So it's like, you should never really question where you are, if you're there, because there's a reason why you're there. And if you feel like you need to work harder to prove that to yourself, that's to you, but you don't need to prove that to anyone else because you're there.
I want to touch on something that Bruce touched on just now too, because I don't want anybody to have the wrong impression of what first impressions truly are. We have certain spaces, in particular the advertising space, and you're going to see post-COVID that people have gotten very comfortable with being in t-shirts and shorts and so forth. And to Bruce's point, that is the norm in the advertising space. But inside of the advertising sponsorship space there, and Marcus can appreciate this because I'm sure it happens to him, there are times that we have to dress a certain way. And so I would encourage the younger generation not to be so rebellious, and understanding that when you walk into these meetings, I know I have a couple of my contemporaries on this particular call here, that you've got to be aware of what environment is accepting of certain standards. In an advertising agency, Bruce is absolutely right. It's a very casual environment because it's a creative environment. But on the, what I call the business side of advertising, you've got to be careful that if you're not the creative person and you're the ad salesperson, you can't show up in the t-shirt and jeans and expect to garner that same amount of respect. So always be cognizant of that. And then when you walk into that room, don't be afraid of being in the room. I constantly say that because I think Bria touched on it earlier. We tend to shrink our greatness to make other people feel comfortable. And then as you go about your career, you realize you've missed opportunities because people didn't take you as seriously as they probably should have, did not respect your talents and your gifts that you bring to the table. Never shrink from that, but always do it in a very confident and respectful manner.
On that attire point, the key to that is just do your research. Like I started in sports marketing, working for the Vikings, and yes, that attire is completely different than what I wear now to work. So definitely do your research into where you work, what you do, like, where the company that you work for, like the research aspect. I mean, that should be standard as far as, what you're trying to do.
Oh, thank you guys. That was insanely insightful. And I'm really hoping that everyone's getting a lot out of these conversations. I wanted to take a second and open up the Q&A for the panelists so they can share some more insight and wisdom. Let's see, do we have any questions submitted? You can submit any questions too at the bottom of the Zoom with the Q&A button. Let's see. So do you have any advice on how to switch career fields? Anyone want to tackle that? Anyone leaving?
I can jump in that one. So while I was at VCU, I had a passion for sports. So I interned, like I said, I worked in sports marketing for the Minnesota Vikings for a little bit. And I was like, all right, sports marketing. I love sports. Like this is home for me. Went out there, interned for a few few years, and was like, not so much. Sports marketing, not for me. My degree was in marketing. I was flirting with the idea of advertising, which is they're like cousins essentially. And after graduation, started working in like Capital One, and eventually made my way into advertising space. After working in advertising, I wanted to try something different. Started doing photography full time, and I think for me, the to get to where I am, long story short, it's not being afraid of just trying new things. I think early on in your career, once you're leaving college, don't be afraid to just try and fail. Like a lot of the bigger lessons that I've learned was trying to switch careers, switch positions, switch industries, and at the end of the day, it's actually maybe more of a well-rounded person when it comes to interviewing, because I've sat at so many different seats at the table. I've been the client, I've sat on the agency side, I've sat on the brand side, I sat on the creative as the creative. So like I can kind of speak the language of all the different aspects of the people sitting at the table. So I wouldn't run from it. I would just say, just don't be afraid, but have a strategy. Like know why you're making that move, and be confident in that decision. And if it doesn't work out, take a step back, learn from that experience, and figure out where your passions lie.
I think that's fantastic. And then so I really want to get to this question that is so wonderful, and I'm glad someone asked it. What does self-care look like post undergrad and outside of your day-to-day professional lives? Um, I think that's really important for several reasons, because I think a lot of people you read articles and take a bath and light a candle and all the superficial high level things, but what are some practical ways that people, especially now where a lot of us are isolated and not able to easily get to the people or the resources or the human connection that we have, what are some self-care ways that people can cope?
I would, there's several things that I do. I'm a golfer now. I played basketball at VCU. I'm not trying to dunk basketball anymore. Real talk. But from a self-care perspective, Bruce kind of touched on it just now. Find out what your interests are and try doing different things. Like right now, I'm learning options trading. When I left VCU, I sold life insurance. And they kept saying, what does a young man like you know about selling life insurance? And just being transparent, I made a lot of money at it, but I hated that job, because who in their 20s wants to sell life insurance, But I think from a self-care perspective, you've got to find out, Bruce said photography, he mentioned photography. We all took photojournalism at VCU. Find out some different things that are outside of, maybe even outside of your career path, that you have an interest in learning. I've always been interested in financial markets, so therefore now the options trading. But I think you've also got to find something physically to keep your body moving, whether that's walking, running, exercising, yoga. I'm fortunate to live in South Florida, so we have beaches here, so we get to do things like that. But you've got to do something physically for yourself every single day. Bria, you touched on it earlier, and in this post-COVID era, a lot of people have suffered mentally. And I think you've really got to be in tune with yourself mentally to find out how this has affected you, your family, your friends, and so forth. So Therapy is never a bad thing. You know, stereotypically, people have been told you don't go see a therapist unless something's really wrong with you, but find you a circle of friends that you can engage with them and talk about what you're going through. Don't isolate yourself, because the more you climb down that rabbit hole, the longer you'll stay in it.
Yeah, unlike Melvin, I am still trying to dunk a basketball. So I'm in a basketball league here in Atlanta, and when I was in Florida. Yeah, no, I find a lot of my time and self-care is focused on whether it's physical fitness, going to the gym, playing basketball. I like to read. I didn't mention a book, and I know that was part of the second question that we had earlier. I read things around my profession or my field because I naturally enjoy it. Diversity Inc. by Pamela Newkirk is one book that I've had a chance to read and I've enjoyed. Tribe by Sebastian Junger is another one. Just throwing books out there, but I like to read in my spare time because it keeps my mind stimulated. Yoga, listening to music, going to figure out like new skills that I didn't necessarily have before, but now, you know, the pandemic has allowed us to have all of our time back. I know we spend a lot of time in that work-life balance of trying to figure out what that looks like at home, but you do get a second to, you know, take an hour here, take 10 minutes there, take 15 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and focus on yourself, right? So a lot of that self-care is just, you know, taking a break from sitting down at a laptop all day. You know, go out and do something that you wouldn't necessarily do, of course, in a safe manner, but something that you didn't necessarily know you had the opportunity to do before because we're tied up in this day-to-day. That's kind of some of the ways that self-care has looked for me, is just finding new things to do, but also understanding that you have your time. That's also another thing that I feel like is important for everyone. And that goes to the mental health side of things too. You don't have to be consumed by what you do day to day. Like, you have your time, know your time is your time.
I think that's fantastic. I think it's very important for people to, just around your time point. I think a lot of people say, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to journal. But if you have time to scroll on TikTok for 2 hours, or if you had time to insert whatever activity, you have time to either sit and be with yourself and do nothing. And that is a form of self-care. And you have time to reach out and talk to other people. And it doesn't always have to be someone you know. Strangers are willing to listen. I think VCU has some resources for that too. Bruce, were you about to say something? I only had one more question.
No, I was gonna say about that point about making time. Like, if you control your workday schedule, block off an hour. Like, my coworkers know I have certain days and certain times blocked for therapy. In the morning, I block off my calendar so there's no early morning meetings. If I want to go shoot basketball, if I want to go for a walk, when it's not a blizzard in New York, I have that time and they have to respect it. So it's like, yeah, like if you need to take control of your calendar.
Yes, before it takes control of you. So just to wrap this up, what is your dream vision for the future generations following in your footsteps? And what would you suggest to their support systems? What would you suggest that they give them?
I'm absolutely excited for you young folks. As somebody who watched the world change last year, seeing, you know, people want to disregard Black Lives Matter, but I have 2 young kids and they're 22 and 25. I watched them become engaged in the social movement of being able to shape their future. So I encourage the younger panelists, I encourage the younger people who are on here, that you truly are shaping what the world and what America looks like tomorrow. Do not be afraid of taking that step of doing that, and I'll be your biggest cheerleader.
That's awesome. I think I would add to that. My hope for future generations is that these conversations will become fewer and fewer. We won't need to talk anymore about what it's like to be Black in XYZ space because we won't be the minority. It will be normal. and we can talk about all the other nuances and difficulties of working in spaces professionally. But I'll also add that the biggest thing that you can give to support one another is just encouragement. Tell people yes. I know that communications, marketing can be an industry where people are like, I don't really get what it is that you're doing. I know my parents for sure still do not fully understand what my job is. But I tell them I did XYZ and they're like, that's awesome. That's so cool. I love that. Go you. And I appreciate that. So do that for people and tell people to do that for you, if even if they don't get it. And do that for your friends in other industries. People who are breaking into engineering, who are breaking into accounting, whatever it is, cheer them on, because that is the number one thing for us to keep going forward.
My big thing is there's never been a point in American history where the focus on the Black future has had a light on it as bright as right now. Like coming out of last year, coming out of everything that we went through and we're still going through, like take advantage of this opportunity. Like you use your resources, highlight what you're doing, learn what you can. Like the world is literally an ocean of opportunity right now for young Black people. And we're here. Like the people who've come before you are here to help you in this journey. So don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate to ask questions, and truly take advantage of what your future looks like and what the future of people who look like you and are around you looks like. And be mindful of what doors you're opening for the people to come. And to Melissa's point, like it's not just even you and your industry or your immediate community. Like support people who look like us in all different types of industries. I just happen to work in an industry that promotes and markets towards people who look like me, on brands who promote to people who look like me. That doesn't mean I can't stop and support the Black dentist, the Black doctor, or the accountant. Like all these are interests that have nothing to do with mine. It's another person who looks like me who's on a journey. So definitely don't hesitate to support.
I would say the same thing as all of y'all have said, and supporting one another. I had 3 other roommates when I was in school. We have calls every week just to catch up on one another and also just support one another and say like, hey, I'm proud of you. Glad to hear everything you're doing, seeing people, gassing people up, as they say, that's what's most important. Like that's your support system, and supporting others will get you through a lot of things, but also that's all I can say that you can give and suggest to everyone that you're interacting with, you have relationships with, who will be your, fellow alums, or, I'm going to see Bruce, Melissa, Bria, Melvin, I'll see them on social media. I'll probably email them or anything. And I'm going to be cheering them on because they're important to me now, and they were always important, but they were now even more important to me because like they are my support system right here in this panel. They're going to be my support system moving forward. And we want to see the next generation that looks like us, but also understands that like we're supporting you all. And find us, like reach out. I always say I'm always available, and I literally mean that. Like I'm always available, and that's just because I know what it's like to go through and navigate. We all know what it's like to navigate being Black. We know what it's like navigating being Black in our careers. And we know that it's hard to navigate being a Black student, trying to be a student, finding a career, knowing where to go, what to do, who to speak to. And that's why we're here for this. Like we're here for you all, and we're your support system now.
That was wonderful. Thank you, everyone. We're a little over time, so I want to pass it back for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Bria, for moderating today's conversation, and to our wonderful panelists for your knowledge and expertise and sharing your stories with us. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we encourage you to register for our upcoming panels. We have 2 more left in this wonderful month of Black History Month that you should now see linked in the chat. If you are also interested in connecting with alumni like we had on the panel, the panelists talked a lot about, just connecting to your alumni network. So definitely encourage you all to check out VCU Link. It is VCU's online community for connecting students, alumni, and friends of the university for career advice, industry contacts, and meaningful professional relationships. And also a lot of our panelists talked about just wanting to stay connected. So maybe we'll also link their LinkedIn accounts as well as we do a little follow-up email to you all. Lastly, everyone should now also see a link in the chat to a short survey to complete so that we can get feedback and thoughts on today's event and how we can best shape our upcoming events. So if you aren't able to grab that link before we end today, we will also be sending out via email within 48 hours along with the recording. So on behalf of VCU Office of Alumni Relations, thank you all so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you all so much. And thank you to our panelists and moderators again.